There's something going on. Shortly thereafter, I closed it up long before Nancy Pelosi wanted it, or any of these people, including Fauci. I used to listen to Fauci, and whatever he said, I did the opposite. I came out very good.
That was former President Trump speaking at the American First Policy Institute in his return appearance to D.C.
It is totally revisionist history. Let's just be completely clear. That is not true. Trump did everything Fauci told him to do 4 months. Sometimes he complained about it. Sometimes he kind of then undermined Fauci and others by he would express frustration with them. But he still did what they said. Yep. He praised that. We just decided to talk about this 30 seconds ago, but in 30 seconds, Trump wrote, "Thank you, Tony." Early in the pandemic, but still,
remember there was a whole scandal about how he had edited Fauci saying that he couldn't imagine anybody doing a better job than Trump. He kind of edited Fauci saying that to make it sound more praiseworthy of Trump.
Yes,
and used
Trump was
it in a
desperate
campaign
for
ad.
Fauci's approval.
Exactly.
He wanted you to know that Fauci thought he was the smartest, most perfectest president ever. So it's not now that Fauci is, and we have to remember at that time Fauci had not yet become this radioactive, polarized figure who is now despised, I think rightly, to be clear, rightly disliked or criticized at least by people in Republican circles. It was not that way at the time, and Trump desperately wanted to.
He desperately wanted his approval. He sat there. I mean, the thing is, what was so odd at the time is Trump was kind of compliant. It felt like the scale of the crisis had eventually gotten him on board. I don't know if some of the corporate interests kind of whispered in his ear and said, we got to get the economy back on track, so you got to get people vaccinated. There was a real coalescing at a certain point around what needed to be done in those late days of the Trump campaign. He sat there, he got his little shot eventually the following year on camera. All of that stuff was happening. So my question to you is, Robby, do you think that Republican voters are going to buy into this revisionist history? Are they going to believe this kind of rhetoric?
I don't think so. I think they know that, honestly, this was one of the frustrations that even maybe the ardent, the really hardcore base has with Trump is that, look, he presided over a lot of these, the restrictions, I guess, were done at the state level, but he was the president. He was in charge, technically, of the vast federal bureaucracy that advised all the shutdowns and the masking and the everything else. And that would eventually implement vaccine requirements on some workers before the Supreme Court undid that. So the buck stops there. I would have liked Trump better if he had reined in what I view as a totally out of control federal bureaucracy, but he didn't. He always talked about doing things and then didn't follow through on them. And I think even very conservative MAGA people, I think a lot of them understand that, that even if they agreed with the rhetoric, or they agreed with the policy, what you got was not that.
Do you remember
what you got was tweets? It's just tweets. It's only words. It's never actions.
That's right. And do you remember there was that moment at a rally where he was trying to take credit and brag about I developed the vaccines. Those are my vaccines, and the crowd turned on him and started to boo.
Yeah.
I mean, he has been doing this uneasy dance.
He's definitely out of step with the hardcore base on the vaccines. Yeah.
And that's why some people think that Ron DeSantis is going to have an outsized.
Yeah, I think there's a variety of reasons that DeSantis will be very formidable and is probably the favorite in a matchup between the two. Trump's continued obsession with relitigating the election is of interest to a very shrinking number of Republicans, I think.
Do you think that is in part because of the January 6th hearings and it's become even marginally more embarrassing for Republicans to have to defend?
I don't think the January 6th hearings are really making it more embarrassing. I think Trump's making it more because he won't move on from it. He wouldn't move on from it initially when the Republicans then lost 2 very winnable Senate seats in Georgia because Trump is not a team player. Which is kind of like, you thought he was going to be a team player? Come on. How many times does this person have a signal that he has no interest in anything but his own personal grievances?
Yeah.
I think that was a breaking point. I mean, there's been an endless series of breaking points. Again, even for people who like his policies or like some of his ideas, like how he's changed the Republican Party, have to recognize that he's not the right guy to implement that vision because he can't see beyond his own.
Look, I will say this. Trump was someone who came onto the scene and nobody had a lot of confidence in. People treated like a joke, who gaslit people about obvious aspects of his record. He was a very public figure for many, many decades, featured in rap songs and Home Alone movies and the works. And he came onto the stage as a political figure and would brazenly misrepresent who he was, what his politics were, completely flipped from a New York liberal into this, evangelical loving, supporter of conservative values, thrice divorced, all of that. We all accepted that dissonance. The public accepted that dissonance. So it wouldn't surprise me terribly if Trump, who's one scale, you got to give it to him, it's this kind of wordsmithing and letting his confidence reinvent reality. If he was able to actually land the idea that he was a Fauci antagonist and to completely subvert the roles that he and DeSantis currently have and kind of claim that territory of the least
utterly ridiculous. And also Fauci has become critical of Trump, which is why he's doing this. Trump, as long as you say nice things to Trump, I mean, this even is true of the state by state reaction. Like, he wasn't very critical of Newsom for a while because Newsom had not said mean things about Trump, even though Newsom was doing some of the most hardcore lockdown policies. Then he was criticizing Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, because she had criticized Trump. For him, it's just all personal. Yeah. It's just personal. There's no way to run a successful political movement, is to just have it be a cult of personality among one very
could
sensitive
be a way to
person.
Win a successful political campaign, though. He did it once.
He did it. Yeah. I don't think he's going to do it again, but this time he is going to be challenged by someone with some consolidation among the sentiment that it should not be Trump. The people who felt like that, it was broken up among 13 other candidates. I think, yeah. I don't predict that happening this time. It's already really consolidating around DeSantis. DeSantis clearly has more credibility, so much, I've said this a million times on the show by now, but so much more preference for DeSantis among conservative media, among Republican elites. And then, if the base hates DeSantis, if the base rejects him, that won't matter. But it doesn't look like they hate him. It looks like, at worst, they like both Trump and DeSantis. Maybe that'll change when they actually have to butt heads. That will be interesting to see when they're actually brought into conflict, because right now they're not really, you don't have to pick a side between the two. So it'll be interesting to see how it breaks down once you do have to pick a side. But it's tentative to make any kind of predictions, but DeSantis has a lot of advantages on his side. And no one is going to buy that. I just did the opposite. When?
I never say never anymore. Look, we will definitely be following that tee-off between the two of those men and changing public opinions about that prospective race, and we will have more rising for you after this.